Blackbeard was an English pirate, likely born in Bristol, England. His real name was likely Edward Teach or Edward Thatch. He signed up as a cabin boy in England and arrived in Jamaica in 1697. After 2 years of service, he became a highly skilled sailor and likely became a privateer in the 1708, fighting in the War for Spanish Succession. After the war, he and many other privateers continued on ransacking ships without state sanctions as pirates. He moved from Jamaica to New Providence in 1715, where a pirate by the name of Henry Jennings had taken up residence. Jennings controlled the island and the port of Nassau and set up his base there because the harbor was deep enough to host his smaller ships but was shallow enough for the Royal Navy not to come in. It is there that Teach meets Benjamin Hornigold. He worked under Hornigold on his ship, the Ranger, until 1716 when Hornigold made Teach a captain of a ship that they had recently captured. They set out for the mainland colonies and captured a boat carrying 120 barrels of flour in Havana and a boat out of Bermuda carrying 100 barrels of wine. A few days later, they arrived in Charleston, where they stole wine from more ships before cruising the Carolina shorelines before heading back to Nassau. It was in Nassau where they encountered Stede Bonnet. Bonnet made his way there to recover from injuries after fighting a Spanish ship. Due to his injuries, Bonnet gave up command of his ship, the Revenge, to Teach. The pirates' flotilla now included 3 ships: Teach's command on the Revenge, Teach's old sloop, and Hornigold's the Ranger. The 3 continued pirating and eventually took control of another ship in October of 1717. Arguments ensued because Hornigold, being a former British privateer, would only attack his former enemies, and his crew would grow annoyed by seeing British vessels and goods being allowed to sail free. Hornigold would take his ship, the Ranger, and another sloop and would retire from piracy, receiving a king's pardon for his crimes. Now with 2 ships, Teach and Bonnet continued their pirating ways all through the Caribbean. In November of 1717, they would eventually come across the La Concorde on the coast of St. Vincent. It was a French slaving ship. The 2 ships attacked and hit the ship on the broadside, killing many of the crew and forcing its captain to surrender. Teach and his crew took control of the vessel and continued to sail south along St. Vincent's to Bequia. It is there where he rebuilt the ship for his own use. He recruited some of the ship's crew and slaves to join him. The remainder of the crew was given a smaller of Teach's 2 sloops and was sent on their way, while the slaves remained on the island. Teach immediately renamed the ship the Queen's Anne Revenge and equipped it with 40 guns. The name likely comes from his loyalty to the House of Stuart, of who Queen Anne was the last monarch. The same year, Teach attacked a well-known ship from Boston called the Great Allen. The ship finally surrendered, and Teach had them move closer to shore, where the pirates looted the cargo and burned and sank the vessel. These 2 incidents were chronicled by local newspapers and gave the rise of his nickname, Blackbeard. On December 5, 1717, Blackbeard stopped the vessel the Margaret off the coast of Crab Island. After being held hostage, the captain and the crew were returned to their ship and left for their base of operations on St. Christopher Island, where they reported the incident to the governor, who requested an affidavit be made. This is where the descriptions of Blackbeard come from, as he is described as a tall, broad man with a very black beard, which he wore very long. He wore knee-length boots and dark clothing, topped with a wide hat and sometimes a long coat of brightly colored silk or velvet, with wearing ribbons in his beard. He was also described wearing a sling over his shoulders, with 3 braces of pistols and stuck lighted matches under his hat. He was reported to have over 40 guns on his ship, a 300-person crew, and a loot of valuable gold dust, silver plates, and very fine cups. What Blackbeard and his crew were up to by the end of 1717 and the beginning of 1718 is not known. It is known that him and Bonnet had parted ways. It's not until March of 1718 that Blackbeard pops up again, capturing a Spanish ship and adding it to his fleet. He captured a Jamaican logging ship called the Adventure and sent over his crew to captain it. It was at this time that Bonnet and Blackbeard met back up after Bonnet refused to attack a merchant ship. Bonnet's crew mutinied against him and brought the ship back to Blackbeard, who named one of his allies as the captain of the Revenge. In April, they looted and burned the ship Protestant Caesar off the coast of Honduras. They headed to the coast of Florida, where they planned to loot the 1715 wreck of the Spanish fleet by a hurricane off its coast of Cape Canaveral. Heading towards Charleston, they captured more ships, adding them to his fleet, when he would give himself the title of Commodore. In May of 1718, his fleet arrived at the port of Charleston. As they were blockading, they captured 9 ships trying to enter the harbor. They sent a ransom note to the governor of South Carolina wanting medical supplies. He threatened to kill his prisoners from the 9 ships he had captured if the demands were not met. The governor agreed to Blackbeard's terms, and 2 pirates were given 2 days to collect the medicine. After 2 days and no return of the pirates, Blackbeard moved 8 of his ships into the harbor, causing panic in the city. Finally, the pirates returned to the ship. The governor had gathered the medicine quickly, but couldn't find the 2 pirates as they had been busy drinking with friends. They were finally found, but were drunk and took the medicine and returned to the ship. Keeping his word, Blackbeard returned his 80 captives, although without their valuables, including fine clothing some had worn. Blackbeard then sailed north to find a spot to hide his ships, arriving at Beaufort Inlet in June of 1718. They intended to careen their ships there, but on June 10th, the Queen Anne's Revenge ran aground on a sandbar. The ship cracked its main mast and damaged several of its timbers. They used other sloops and ropes to try to pull her out, but failed. Another ship had also run aground, and it seemed that both ships were damaged beyond repair. It is believed by some that Blackbeard purposely crashed his ship and others because his fleet and ships were starting to attract too much attention. Also, with less ships, he was able to leave some crew behind, thus increasing the amount of his loot. Blackbeard had also learned about a possible pardon for his crimes. He and Bonnet were both willing to accept it. The problem was the pardon would be for all crimes before January 5th. That would mean that their siege and crimes at Charleston were not going to be pardoned, and they could still be hanged. They decided to go to the man they thought they could trust, and the governor of North Carolina. Blackbeard decided to wait and see what would happen to Bonnet when he would go to the governor. Bonnet left immediately on a small boat heading to Bathtown, North Carolina, the then capital. Bonnet received a pardon for his crimes, and as Bonnet worked for a commission to return to his ships and collect them, he was finally allowed to return to his ships and collect them and his crew. When Bonnet returned to Beaufort Inlet, he found that Blackbeard had looted all the ships, left 250 of the crew deserted on the island, and left on the adventure with his most trusted crewmen and all of his loot. Betrayed, Bonnet convinced some of the men to join him and get the ships ready to sail to chase after Blackbeard. They would never find him and return to piracy. Eventually, they would be caught and hanged in September of 1718. Blackbeard himself had headed north and crossed Ocracoke Inlet and arrived in Bathtown, where he and his crew received pardons. He settled in Bathtown, down the street from the governor, and was allowed to keep his ship. He would spend his July and August shuttling between his home and his ship based in Ocracoke. By the time the Adventure was repaired and ready to be off, Blackbeard set off and returned to piracy. He attacked 2 French ships and looted them. He took one of the ships as his prize and returned to Ocracoke Inlet, where he was forced to have an audience with the governor. Blackbeard told the governor that the ship was found deserted at sea. A vice admiralty court was convened. After judging the incident, the ship was seen as a derelict found at sea, and of its cargo, 20 wooden casks of sugar would be awarded to the collector of customs, and 60 to the governor. Teach and his crew would then be given what remained of the vessel's hold. It is at this point that Blackbeard continued to loot ships off the coast of the Carolinas. Many residents began to believe that the governor was working with Blackbeard, and neighboring governors began to be afraid that Blackbeard was fortifying his position and was trying to take control of the Atlantic coasts. The governor of Pennsylvania then issued a warrant for Blackbeard's arrest, along with another pirate, Charles Vane. It was believed that Blackbeard had looted and attacked ships in the Delaware Bay at the time the warrant was issued. The governor sent out 2 sloops to capture the pirates but failed. With some of Blackbeard's crew moving into Virginia, it became an issue for the governor of Virginia. The governor had many of Blackbeard's former crew members arrested, including his former quartermaster. Many of them were tried and found guilty of attacks, even though their attorneys argued that the arrests were unjustified. They were to be hanged, but were saved by a commission from England, which directed the governor to pardon all acts of piracy committed by surrendering pirates before August 18, 1718. Still, the governor had gotten the info he needed. He was told the whereabouts of Blackbeard. The governor put a bounty on Blackbeard's head with the support of the Assembly Virginia, and now with the backing of the Crown in England, after the governor suggested that the Crown would benefit financially from Blackbeard's capture. Lieutenant Maynard of the Royal Navy was given command of the HMS Pearl and the HMS Lime. He ordered the captains to take some of the crew and march overland to Bathtown, while he took some of the ships and surrounded them by sea. Included in the crew marching towards Bathtown were North Carolina residents, a colonel and a captain, sent to counter any local objection of the presence of a foreign army. They arrived in Bathtown to find that Blackbeard had gone, but his arrival was imminent. They dispatched 2 canoes to Oracoke Inlet to see if he was there. Maynard had arrived with his 2 vessels and spotted the pirates anchored on the inner side of Oracoke Island in the evening. Maynard kept his position and stopped any ships from entering the inlet so they could not warn Blackbeard. It was reported that Blackbeard had less than 20 men on a ship, and at daybreak on November 22, 1718, Maynard had his ships enter the inlet. The small craft was quickly spotted by the Adventure and fired at as soon as it was within range of her guns. Blackbeard's crew cut their anchor lines and hoisted their sails. Maynard had decided to move most of his crew below deck and then raise the Union Jack flag and prepared to attack. Accounts differ on what took place, but it is believed that the Adventure fired at one of Maynard's ships and it took so much damage that it was believed to be inoperable. Small arms fire caused damage to the Adventure, causing it to run into a sandbar. In the aftermath, both of Maynard's ships may have also run aground, but it is truly unknown. As the gap between the ships closed, Blackbeard prepared for his men for fighting. The 2 vessels were finally made contact, and Blackbeard's crew stormed the ship. They were met with a small round of firing from a group of men led by Maynard. The rest of Maynard's men then bursted through the hold, shouting and firing to the surprise of Blackbeard. Eventually, Maynard and Blackbeard would reach each other and both would fire shots at each other, with Blackbeard missing but Maynard's connecting. The stronger force overwhelmed the pirates, and they pushed back when Blackbeard and Maynard pulled their swords. Blackbeard would eventually break Maynard's sword at the hilt, and as Blackbeard went to strike the final blow on Maynard, he was hit across the neck with one of Maynard's men's swords. Badly wounded, Blackbeard was then attacked and killed by several more of Maynard's crew. With the fall of their captain, the remaining pirates surrendered. Of the 16 surrenderers, 14 would be found guilty of piracy and hanged. After examination of Blackbeard's body, he had 5 bullet wounds and over 20 sword cuts on it. His corpse was thrown into the inlet, and his head was suspended from the bowsprit of Maynard's ship. On return to Virginia, Blackbeard's head was placed on the pole at the entrance of Chesapeake Bay as a warning to other pirates and remained there for years. He is believed to be about 35 to 40 years old when he was killed. Thus ended the life of Blackbeard. He had pirated through the Caribbean for only 2 years before his demise. Many flags were attributed to Blackbeard, but the most popular of them depicting a horned skeleton spearing a heart while toasting the devil was likely never used by him, and his flag was likely the flag that he flew while blockading Charleston, which was a black flag with a skull on it. Despite his record and crimes, there is no verified accounts of Blackbeard ever murdering or harming any of his captives. Thanks for watching, everybody.